All right, it's 11:01. Let's get this party started. Today's webinar is Overcoming the Challenges of Hybrid Monitoring. My name is Pete DiStefano. I'm going to be co-presenting with my partner in crime, Mario Gomez. Mario's a senior sales engineer in engineering, working with a variety of the SolarWinds products. I'm a product marketing manager in our IT operations management products. So before we get going, for those who might not be as familiar with SolarWinds, I just wanted to put up one slide that kind of represents our IT operations management portfolio. I think this does a nice job of representing, I think, 50 or 60 some odd products, from the network side up through infrastructure management, database application, our service management offerings, and our IT security offerings. And most appropriate, especially for this session, whether your IT implementation is on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, or as we're going to talk about today, a hybrid environment. So if there are other areas, we're going to be talking mostly today about infrastructure management, application management in our examples. But as you can see, there's quite a bit of things that we bring together at SolarWinds. So feel free to learn more about SolarWinds in your time. So as we get going here, I wanted to have a little bit of fun here with this shift to hybrid. And it's not just hybrid, but hybrid multi-cloud implementations. You know, back in 2017, Gartner predicted that 90% of the organizations will adopt hybrid infrastructure management, and that's come true. In 2019, they said that public cloud users that were surveyed, 81% of them said that they are working with 2 or more cloud providers, which is interesting. And then I thought this was an interesting set of information from Forrester research that was done this year, saying that 90% of IT decision makers agree that on-premises infrastructure is a critical part of the hybrid cloud. So this whole thing, we're all going to just kind of dump our legacy environments and just go over to the cloud, you know, that's just not going to happen. And there's, by the way, there's real benefits of all the above. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And quite frankly, we're going to talk about how do you manage all this stuff? How do you keep it all up and running? So first of all, just a quick definition, you know, what is hybrid infrastructure and application monitoring? Well, it basically, if you look at the private cloud, public cloud, on-premise data center, you know, whether you own all the assets, whether you're bare metal in a private cloud environment or even in a public cloud environment where you're responsible for much of the installation, the upkeep. What we're going to talk about today is all of these elements together, whether it is your own data center, whether it's, you know, and by the way, and multiple clouds too. So it's not just about hybrid or cloud versus on-prem, it's about multiple cloud implementations. So what drove this move? What's driving this move to the cloud? And again, none of this should be surprising to you. You know, originally security was a big issue in the cloud. That's no longer an issue. However, there's still some benefits in a data center if you're really talking about locking down your data. And then yet being able to also leverage the flexibility of the cloud. One example is this in this next bullet. If you've got an application that really has some crazy spikes, whether it's seasonality, whether it has to do with certain things that are going on within your business, being able to deal with those peaks cost effectively can be really take advantage of that in the cloud. You clearly want to optimize the investment. A lot of companies, and maybe a lot of you on this call today, have dealt with, you know, significant, you know, capital investments in your IT infrastructure. Well, you want to take advantage of that, and there's no reason you can't have this combined and get the best of all worlds. Leveraging cloud, and depending on your business and your applications, whether it has to do with network, but being able, in some cases, to get your application closer to where the actual users are can make a difference. Another thing, you know, whether it's your data warehouses that you might have on-premise or the back-end legacy systems, a lot of new development, front-end developments being done in the cloud while still leveraging the legacy on-premise data as well as the back-end systems. So lots of things driving, not just to the cloud, but this, how do I leverage both? So the stakes today are higher. You know, this is not even a statement of moving to the cloud, yet the way technology has evolved, there's so much more capability now to do things, to do them quickly. And, even before the whole COVID thing, but if you look at the COVID thing today, that was a way to punctuate how important IT, how important access, how important electronic communications has been in this environment. But even before that, companies are so much more dependent on IT than ever before. Traditionally, used to say IT supports the business. In many cases, applications are the business. And I mentioned this earlier, customers are demanding, they want more. They see now there's more capability, and they're seeing with all these agile environments, they want more and they want it faster. So here we have this environment which gives all sorts of opportunities for companies to do things, capture revenue, capture customers in ways they couldn't do it before. But it's being done with a lot more code, more components, more complexity. On top of that, now let's talk about more locations. So it's not just your data center, multiple data centers. Everyone's always had to deal with that. But now you've got these microservices-based applications where pieces of these applications can be running across data centers, across multiple cloud environments. This is what would say, wow, how do I keep this all up and running? Because the stakes are higher. Applications don't only need to be available, but they need to be performing. And I know you've all heard that before, but this digital transformation that's happened and these capabilities that have been enabled through some of the cloud capabilities in combination with what's going on in your data centers, high availability, high performing applications. So monitoring this environment is very important, and it is very complex. Being able to know what's not working, where it is, and then exactly what do I need to do to get it fixed really has trumped up the criticality. Terms like application performance monitoring, or APM, used to be limited to dev and to the cloud native world. That is becoming an absolute requirement to successfully keep applications up and running. Well, look, today what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to monitor a hybrid environment. How can you build a strategy that lets you, from a single approach, monitor whether they're in a data center, whether they're in a cloud, making sure that a collective hybrid application could be monitored and quickly dealt with in the event that there's an issue. And as good as anyone is, or IT organization, as good as any software development is, stuff happens. And when it does, today it's even more important to act very quickly. So we're going to be going through some SolarWinds products. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass the torch over to Mario Gomez, and he is going to take you through over the next 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes or so, and he's going to show you what I just talked about a little bit. Mario, why don't you go ahead and take over? You should now have presenter capabilities. By the way, while he's doing that, I want to make sure everyone understands there will be a recording of this webinar that you'll get. Also, it's really important, if we're going to be successful, that you ask questions. We want to make sure we understand what's on your mind. And in the context of this presentation, we want to make sure there is no questions left in your mind. So please feel free throughout this to put in questions on the Q&A, and we'll make sure we do the best we can to answer all of those at the end of the session. Go ahead, Mario. Sorry. Let me unmute you. There you go, Mario.
Oh, there we go. I was talking to myself for a little while there. No worries. Happens in this day and age of, work from home with everything going on. But as I was saying to myself a second ago, my name is Mario Gomez. I'm a senior sales engineer here at SolarWinds. I've been with the company for about 6 years now as a sales engineer. Prior to that, I did work as a systems engineer for a number of different companies. So I have pretty good familiarity with, what's going on in the IT world, and then what's going on with our modules, our products. So one of the first things I wanted to address was, for those of you that may not be familiar with SolarWinds and what we have to offer, we are very modular. We have a number of different modules. Each module typically is going to focus on a different level or layer of your infrastructure. Right? Today, what we're going to be talking about are what we call our Orion-based modules. Orion is a platform. It's a foundation that we build modules off of. It gives us one place to go to with common look and feel, common alerting, common reporting. When I learn the alerting and reporting for one module, I pretty much have it for all of them, just different data I'm going to be alerting and reporting off of. When I hover over my dashboards on the screen here, you'll notice all these sub-dashboards: network, NetFlow, network configuration. Just know that each one is a separate module. And for the most part, they have the ability to stand on their own, meaning you don't have to buy all of them. Right? You can install one today and then tomorrow come back and say, I really love the information this one's providing me with. I'd like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into a different area of our infrastructure. I noticed you guys have a virtualization monitoring tool. Let me go ahead and install that one. Well, I would install it on the same Windows-based server that I already have the other module installed on. It would share the same SQL backend database and store its information there. And then my new little dashboard would show up, giving me the functionality behind that module. So again, just want to kind of get that out of the way for those of you that may not be familiar with SolarWinds and how we work. As Peter mentioned, today we're going to be focusing on those modules that may really help you when it comes to monitoring a hybrid environment. The first one I think we're going to end up talking about is a module called Server and Application Monitor, or SAM for short. We love our three-letter acronyms at SolarWinds. We also will take a quick look at Virtualization Manager, Storage Resource Monitor, and our Web Performance Monitor. Each one of these, as I mentioned earlier, focuses on a specific layer of your infrastructure. It performs a specific task, bringing specific information to the table, allowing you to better monitor your not only on-prem environment, but also your hybrid, your cloud environment, whether that be AWS or Azure or Google, private cloud, whatever cloud you're using. We have the ability to pull information from those clouds as long as you have some type of network connectivity, whether it be over the internet or your MPLS link, VPN tunnels, things like that. So to get started, and because we have little time here on the call today, we'll jump into Server and Application Monitor and just kind of show you around a little bit, show you what we can do here. And you know what, more specifically, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight to, let's say, our Azure Hybrid SharePoint page. Because this kind of shows you the ability within the module to not only monitor your on-prem, but also gather information from those cloud-based tools that you may be using, like Office 365, SharePoint Online, OneDrive, those types of tools out there. So I can pull that information, I can map that information, I can get a nice visual of how all this lays out. I can see those on-prem solutions, those devices that I have, like my hypervisor that may be running my server that has my link to my SharePoint environment. Or in the case of, let's jump over to Office 365, which has some nice Azure AD mapping here. And I'm going to blow up the map a little bit because I know it may be hard to see right now. And we'll scroll around the map here. But you can kind of see down at the bottom, I'm able to bring in information not only about my systems, like my Azure server right here, where I'm able to see my CPU and memory utilization. This is the server that's giving me, that's running my AD Connect application. Right, so giving me that connection out to my cloud environment in Office 365 and AD Online. But I'm also getting information about the hypervisor, the host, that actually happens to be a VM, and that VM is running on this host, and that host is pulling storage from my pure storage array on the back end. So there's the LUN, and there's the pool, and there's the storage array. And based off of the status thresholds that I set against these objects, I can quickly see, hey, this is green, this is green, this is green. I'm not having a problem with my storage on the back end. Now, my hypervisor, on the other hand, it looks like that host may be having an issue. It's yellow. It's something that I would want to go and investigate. And in this case, when I hover over it, you can kind of see quickly that I have an interface that's in a down state. And sorry, the hover over just disappeared, but there it is. There's my child entity with a problem. That's why I have a warning on this. I can either choose to silence that alert, or I can start investigating and figure out, why is this interface in a down state currently? I need to dig into that, troubleshoot it, or like I said, maybe I can safely ignore that I'm doing something to that. I'm maintenance mode. But bubble that up and roll it up to the VM that's running on there so that I know where the problem within my infrastructure lies. And then going further, here's the application that runs off of the server. Within that application, I have a number of what we like to call components. So maybe I'm monitoring my services or perfmon counters. Maybe I'm running a PowerShell script that's reaching out, grabbing a statistic, pulling it back in so that I can set a threshold against that, and I can get my alerting based off of that information. This is all part, or most of this is part of Server and Application Monitor today. Right? My server information, my application information, specific information on services or perfmon counters that I'm actually monitoring within. But you also have the virtualization manager tie-in. So I want to know what's going on at the virtual layer. I want to know what my VMware environment is looking like. I want to know, for instance, in a VMware environment, you may have ready time or co-stop, memory swapping, memory ballooning. I need that information as well, because if I'm just talking to the server itself and the VM, I'm only getting part of the picture. I'm talking to Windows, or I'm talking to some Linux OS that lives on that server, but it's all through the eyes of that operating system. I need the back-end information as well, which is where Virtualization Manager would come in and provide that back-end virtual, or those back-end virtual metrics, performance, capacity. Also give me recommendations. How can I better utilize the resources that I have within my environment, make the most of them? Capacity planning. When am I going to need to add resources? I want you to take 30 days of information, trend that 365 days into the future, and then you tell me when I'm going to be out of CPU, memory, or storage. What is the constraint that I'm seeing within that environment so that I can address that issue? Right-sizing my VMs based off of actual utilization. So give me those reports. Give me that information. All of that can be achieved through our Virtualization Manager product. Again, VMware, we support Hyper-V, and we've recently added the ability to monitor Acropolis running off of Nutanix. And then we have our Storage Resource Monitor, which is giving me information about those back-end storage arrays. So I want to be able to see information, capacity and performance at the LUN level, at the pool level, at the overall storage level. I want to be able to bring in my Pure Storage array, my NetApp array, my EMC, my Dell Compellents. I want to see all of that in one pane of glass instead of having to jump to all of these different tools in order to get the information that I'm looking for. And again, alert and report from one place instead of having all these different places that I need to go to. So all of those tie-ins, Web Performance Monitor, I want synthetic end-user transactions. I want to be able to go to a website, have that recorded. I want to click login. I want to enter my username, a password. I want to record all those steps, and I want to play them back every 5 minutes. And not just from one location. I want to maybe have an Australia location, maybe something out in Germany and Canada and South America. Right? I want to be able to take that one transaction that I recorded and play it back from all those different locations so that I get a sense of what my end users are feeling from those locations, if they're able to access Office365.com, for instance. Can they log in? Are we having trouble in that region? And then, once again, drop it on a map and have that information given back to me, the alerting, the reporting, the quick visual that I can use in order to see what's going on here. So just to reiterate, I have my storage monitoring down here. I have my virtualization monitoring. I'm monitoring my Azure AD Connect server that's on-prem, that's running the AD Connect software. So I'm monitoring that as well, the services and maybe perfmon counters that I'm gathering information from and setting thresholds against. And then maybe I have some custom API pullers pulling information from the cloud, Azure, AWS, Google, or I'm taking advantage of some of the out-of-box server and application monitor utilities for monitoring Office 365. Because we provide a number of PowerShell scripts for you that you can use in order to get information from your Exchange Online, OneDrive, SharePoint environments and pull that information back in. So give me all of that information, give me one place to go to see all of that information so I know exactly where the break is and I can address that as quickly as possible so that my end users hopefully get to it before my end users notice there is a break. Right? So that I can address the issue.
You just mentioned something that's real important because, we talk about having 1,200 plus, out of the box templates. We have templates both for cloud-based monitoring as well as for on-prem. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. I'll do it better than that. I can show you some of these templates. So when I go into my applications, my SAM summary, there is a Manage Applications button that I can click on. My middle tab here will show me that I have 315 out-of-box templates for my server and application monitor product, but I also have shared templates on Thwack. Thwack, I always get a little chuckle there. It's just, I think it's the sound of somebody hitting their head on the desk is where they got it from, or at least that's one of the stories I've heard. But Thwack is our online community. It's a very large, very active, very helpful online community. Our users will create templates for applications, and they'll share them out with the rest of the community. There are over 1,000 templates out on Thwack, which is why we say we have over 1,200 templates addressing different applications. So alone in our out-of-box, you can go anywhere from Active Directory to Citrix to Oracle, Exchange. If I wanted to just look at all my Office 365 templates, I can type in 365 and search, and we have a number of Office 365 templates that we offer to you. So monitoring your Exchange mailboxes, mobile device statistics, group statistics, licensing, mail traffic. You have OneDrive, SharePoint, Skype for Business. Each one of these templates is made up of, I may have mentioned it earlier, a number of components, which in this case probably going to be a bunch of PowerShell scripts because that's how we're getting information from the cloud. I can edit these templates though. I can set thresholds against these components. I can view the actual PowerShell script that's being run in order to go and get this information from Microsoft, pull it back in, set the threshold against it, and then alert based off of that information that we're gathering. Does that help answer the question?
Awesome. No, that's great.
And we basically poll by default every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, we're going to run these scripts. We're going to get that information, bring it back in, and report it back to you. So you have hopefully the most update. And of course, the polling frequency is adjustable. Just pay attention to the weight on the polling engine, of course. But I hope that gave you a good overview of what we can do with our systems bundle, what we could do at the individual levels with these modules. And of course, at any time, if you want a more in-depth, because I kind of just skimmed the surface of a lot of this, if anybody ever needs a more in-depth demo, reach out to your account rep. We're more than happy to set up a call and jump online with you and really get into the nitty-gritty with these products and how you can utilize them to help with your hybrid environments. With that, I'll go ahead and turn this back over to Pete. I know we only have about 4 minutes left in the call, so I wanted to make sure we had time for any Q&A that may be coming up. So Pete, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to make you the presenter again.
Great. So first of all, Mario, thank you. And for everyone, in 30 minutes, we just wanted to give you a kind of a sense for how these products can help you in a hybrid environment. There's so much more. Mario could go on for hours to show you all the capabilities. But I think if there's one thing you take away from this is if you're looking to figure out how to manage this environment that spans multiple cloud locations, on-premise data centers, remote locations, this is something you might want to take a look at. Before we get into the Q&A, just want to let you guys know you're about to get a polling question to see if there's some things that you'd like to follow up. So feel free to answer those questions. But while you're doing that, I really would like to go through. We have a couple of questions here. I'd also like to throw it out to the group. We do have a couple of minutes. Got a couple of questions here already. But feel free to throw questions into the Q&A. And we'll do our best to answer it. Let me go through, actually, one of these questions I think I heard Mario answer, but I'm going to repeat it so he can repeat it. The question was, it was like, here's the first question. Is there a difference between setting up monitoring and your alerts for a cloud application versus, say, an on-premise application?
And the answer to that is no. They're essentially the same alerting engine that they're both going to share. So since we're pulling the information back into Server and Application Monitor, and we have our statistics and our thresholds set there that we're seeing, then it's going to be the same alerting engine as. And I think I did mention it early on when I was talking about common alerting, common reporting between all the modules, and how when I learn alerting for one module, I pretty much have it for all the other modules because it's the same alerting engine, just different data that I'm alerting and reporting off of.
Perfect. And this is the question that I think you answered without being asked on the polling. I think you said it was about 5 minutes intervals, and that's no different, correct? Whether cloud, on-prem, SAM will poll components as frequently as 5 minutes, and can you adjust that?
You definitely can. So a lot of times the typical default is going to be 5 minutes. There are exceptions here and there. They're kind of rare, but default is typically going to be 5 minutes. You can typically lower that all the way down to a minute if you needed to get that information more often. Now, I did mention, of course, keep an eye on the polling engine, because when you start polling more often, you're putting more weight, which means you may have to play a balancing act. So I've seen customers that will take their critical systems, their critical applications, and say, I need the information more often. So I'm going to go ahead and lower it to a minute for this application in this system. But on this system, I'm going to maybe double it. I don't need the information as often. It's more of a nice to have. So I'm going to go ahead and increase this to 10-minute intervals instead of 5 minutes. And you can play a little bit of a balancing act with the polling engine on the back end so that you're not overwhelming it and you're not overwhelming all of your systems or your network, because, again, keep all of that in mind. You're requesting this information over the wire. It's going to chew up bandwidth.
Got it. So we've got time for one more question. Actually, and I'm actually going to combine. There was two questions, but I think you can answer them both. One question was, what cloud platforms does SAM support? But the next question, very more specifically, was any other AWS services monitoring supported apart from EC2 and EVS, or is there an option to pull metrics from AWS CloudWatch? And I'm going to say, Mario, if you can answer that from an out-of-the-box perspective and then from a capability perspective. But if you can give us give a little bit of background on how we support the cloud. but specific, can we pull from CloudWatch, or is it just, he just mentioned EC2 and EBS?
Gotcha. And the answer is yes. So with Server and Application Monitor and Virtualization Manager, you do have the ability to enter in your EC2 information, and we will go out, pull the instance information. And that's kind of a freebie that we have within SAM, Server and Application Monitor, and vMan Virtualization Manager. So just by adding your Azure account or your AWS account information, we'll go and pull your instances. But it'll be much like looking at it through a virtual lens. This is all coming from EC2 CloudWatch type information. So I can see configuration and some security details, CPU, memory utilization, storage utilization, network utilization type information that I can pull. And then if I want to, I can actually start monitoring those hosts, those instances, as I do all my other on-prem servers by installing an agent on them, or if I have some kind of VPN tunnel to that AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, then I can treat them as they're on-prem and pull them using one of my agentless methods and start talking to the actual operating system that lives on that instance. On top of that, I mentioned it briefly as we're going through the demos, but Server and Application Monitor does have the ability to create custom API pollers. So if the cloud-based solution, whatever it may be, has some kind of API that we can talk to, and we use a REST API, then you can go in there and you can create your own custom API pollers to pull for the information that you're looking to gather from those environments. Does that answer the question? I hope.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I hope this 30 minutes was enough of a tease, depending on what you're all looking for, that you might want to follow up. I apologize that we went a couple of minutes over. As we're exiting, I just want to let you know that if you're not with SolarWinds, if you're not familiar with THWAC, the next THWAC camp is coming up. It's a virtual event. It's 2 days, November 12th and 13th. Just go to thwaccamp.com, and you can find all about the sessions that are happening there. I want to thank Mario for his time. This was great. And thank you all for spending the time with us. And we hope that this was of value to you and can help you as you try to evaluate what you need to do to manage this very challenging but rewarding environment, that being a hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environment. Thank you very much, and I think we're done for today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Take care.